I think when the non-appearance of the Independent Alliance is the most interesting thing that's happened here this morning, it kind of sums up where we're at, because I'm kind of hoping at this stage that they don't turn up and we have a general election, because I really don't think I can take much more of this. The air of unreality that has surrounded these proceedings is quite frankly shocking. The usual empty slogans and speeches, the usual new outfits and new hairdos, but you know what? It's a million miles away from the real lives of citizens in this state. And I've no doubt, like myself, I would be relieved if I could turn on a television or listen to the radio without having to see an independent wheeled out to tell us about how they're batting for the national interest and not themselves. That is a relief. But you know what? We have to ask, at what cost? Because what's been put before us today and the Irish people is the same neoliberal policies perpetuated by the last government and indeed the one before it, but packaged up with a few bows to make it appear different, but it's actually absolutely the same. And I want to deal with the real world, and I want to share a letter and an email I got from a constituent and a woman who's known to me this week, who talked about the tragic death of her sister as a result of the mortgage debt that woman, and other cutbacks actually, that woman had experienced. And as a result of the bank putting pressure on the family, the woman's relationship with her husband failed. And her sister went on in the letter. Her mental health suffered and she sought help from her GP. She was on medication for depression, but her GP said this needed to be re-evaluated. So she was putting on a waiting list to see a psychiatrist who she'd attended previously. The waiting list, with cuts to mental health, was 4 months, and she still had no date for an appointment. She had been working, but she wasn't able to keep it on. So she was put onto disability benefit. But a letter arrived to say she hadn't arrived for her appointment, for her review, so her payment was suspended. The woman went on to say, I found that letter and all of the letters from the banks and the financial agencies scattered around her bedroom on the 28th of January 2015. Today, I called the coroner's office to ask when the inquest into her death would be held. Because of the high rate of suicide, they're estimating 18 months. That's the Ireland that you've been responsible for. And the programme from government, the tidbits that we've seen, is actually a perpetuation and a continuation of that situation. A situation where only 26% of the population voted for Fine Gael and you, Taoiseach Kenny. When you take in those who didn't vote, it's less than 17%, and yet, as a result of people who claim to be independent and Fianna Fáil, you're going to get your hands back on the reins, maybe. But I remind you of one thing. Today is the birthday of Robespierre, the famous French revolutionary who challenged the system and fought the old order. Well, you certainly aren't him. But I would remind you that he ended up on the guillotine, and I think that may yet happen.